Hi, this is Hyperwave. I'm Leah Wald, and I'm here with Tyler Jenks. And to start off with, Tyler tweeted this morning, hope is not a good investment strategy. So Bitcoin is not doing what we had hoped and wanted it to do. So Tyler is going to talk today very simply about what the hard reality of what he's seeing right now, and it isn't very good. So Tyler?
Thank you, Leah. Yeah, I wrote that this morning to remind myself that I have slowly become a cheerleader for Bitcoin, and that is not a good thing to be. As an investment manager, or if you are making your own investment decisions, you have to constantly um, think about what you are thinking. And when you find yourself trying to draw conclusions because it makes you feel better about your position in the market or in Bitcoin or in any investment that you've taken, you've got to examine your own thinking before you go back to the charts. And don't let yourself be persuaded by what you want to happen as opposed to what is actually happening. So, we are going to take a look today at what is actually happening with Bitcoin prices and put it in some sort of context. So, we will do that by going to screen share. And because we have been using this chart for so long, we will continue using it at least through the weekend. Hopefully, the Bitcoin prices resolve themselves in some way over the weekend, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. And then I'm going to switch over to TradingView because it gives us a lot more flexibility. But in any case, this is the chart that we have looked at for a very long time, which includes a line at 10,100, a second line at 11,100, and then you also see this coming down from the atmosphere, and I'll show you what that is in just a second. But we have been saying ever since the bottom at 5,920 that the uptrend off that bottom is going to be very, very difficult. There are 3 or 4 areas when that bottom was put in that it was easy for any technical analysts to be able to predict where the resistance was going to come. There would be resistance at 7,500 to 8,000, and it took us a pretty long time to get through this area, but we did. And then we ran up to the 9,000 area, and it gave a little bit of resistance, and it gave way. But even all the way back here, we were able to predict that 10,100 and 11,100 would be very key levels. And the reason we said that wasn't because we can foresee the future or we are apostolic or that we can divine what is about to happen. It's simply because these two lines at 10,100 and 11,100 had proven as prices went up, and more importantly, as prices came down, to be areas of great interest to both buyers and sellers. That's what a line of resistance or support means. It means that basically there is a balancing act that takes place for whatever reason at some level. And that reason in general has to do with either the enthusiasm or the sentiment or the amount of money that is willing to come into or go out of the market at various points along the price continuum. A lot of big words that simply mean that if you look at a chart like this one, and you see that prices drop from 19,666 precisely down to this line, that line could very well mean something. And then when you see that it did the same thing over here on the left as the price was going up, and then later did it again on the right as price was coming down, it doesn't take a genius to be able to tell that when you break through those lines, they are going to be difficult to get back over from the opposite direction, in this case from the bottom back up. So with that very quick lesson in psychology and technical analysis, let's take a look at where we are. We talked several days ago about the fact, I'm going to move to a daily chart here so we can talk in terms of the number of days that have gone by since the bottom. Back down here, as we slowly started up, we said that 10,100 and 11,100 would be key. On this day, we came up to 10,100 and we closed right below it. The next day, we closed with 11,000. I'm going to make this a little bigger. At 10,100, we went above it, below it, closed right on it. The next day, we went above it with the wick touching that line, closed at the next level of 11,100 precisely. The next day, it couldn't get above 11,100, dropped all the way back to 10,100. The next day, it went from 10,152 back up to 11,100. The next day, it broke through it, and we were all excited. We were all hopeful. I was particularly hopeful. I did point out that there is a downtrend line coming from the top at 19,666 through the first major top following that primary top. And that line, this line, a downtrend line, was able at this point to stop the upward momentum of the price of Bitcoin. Now, the question is, what has happened during the last 48 hours? And the answer is, it ain't too great. Because not only did we break back down through 11,100, we came close on this candle to touching 10,100. Today, starting late last night, and will end in the evening tonight, we couldn't even get back to the 11,100 level. We dropped right through the 10,100 level, and we are now trading below it. So where are we? Well, I have a target at this point of 8,400. And I get that in a couple of different ways, but 8,400 is down where my pointer is right now. What that will clearly do, if that happens, is it will break this uptrend. We're sitting on the uptrend right now, but it held on this day, this day, this day, this day, this day, and it was the beginning of the turnaround from the bottom. It's an important line. It's not as long or as powerful as the one coming down from the top, but it's still important. So either my calculation is wrong about dropping to 8,400, which I don't believe it is wrong, or we are going to break this uptrend line. And to me, the consequences of that break are paramount. Why? Because of this silly thing that we call hyperwave. Our big debate has been that clearly Bitcoin is in a hyperwave. You don't know that, and most people don't know that, but after 40 years, I do know that. And that's why I've become so interested in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, because these things called hyperwaves are so rare that when they occur, it is a momentous event for a lot of reasons that will become clear as you listen to these vlogs. But specifically with Bitcoin, I have been very worried that what appears as a 5 on this line, this downturn from a peak, is where we might be with Bitcoin. Because it looks so similar to this. And this looks so similar to a 6. This. That the possibility exists that we were going to end this Bitcoin hyperwave and drop all the way back down to 1,000. So hope is not an investment strategy. And I've been hoping that that is the case with the price of Bitcoin right now. That this uptrend that started will keep going until it reaches the peak at 19,666. That was true until 48 hours ago. It might still be true today. But I'm not going to hope that it is true. I am going to follow every tick of this market as it is in a downtrend for the last 48 hours. And I know the possibility is that we can turn this around, but I can no longer hope that that's the case. We are going to analyze this very carefully because two things could happen. One is we drop below this uptrend line, and I have reason to believe that we're about to do that. And then secondarily, but most importantly, if we drop below this uptrend line, where is it going to stop? If it stops at 8,400, and I think there's a reasonable possibility it will because of all of this support over here, then the downtrend can end and we can start a new uptrend back through all of this resistance, which will be easier to get through this time than it was the first time. That's one possibility. The other possibility is grim for Bitcoin holders or people still in Bitcoin, and that is that we drop below 6,300. Actually, let me rephrase that. We drop down below this line which came in at 6,300 back when we dropped down to 5,900 on this low. And my line held, which is what spurred this large move up from the 5,900. It doubled almost to 12,000. That line now comes in at just below 7,000. So back to our main chart, I believe we're going to 8,400 right now. If that is true and that holds at 84 to 8,500, we can breathe a small sigh of relief, but it must get going back up. If it drops below 8,400, my drop deadline is now 7,000. Meaning if it continues down through 7,000, I will absolutely declare that the hyperwave in Bitcoin is ended, and we are going back to about somewhere below $1,000, probably to $800. So we've been saying for many, many days and weeks now how important this entire correction from the top was. Now we're getting down to the nitty-gritty where we can actually tell day by day, hour by hour, how significant each move is. Today's move is very significant. If we can close above this uptrend line, I will be very pleased, and I might even become hopeful once again. And with all of that, we're going to go back so Leah can sign off.
Thanks, everybody, for watching, and until next time.
Bye-bye.